We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? And I'll give the call to the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. Yesterday, the Minister gave 3 different explanations for why Labor is breaking its promise to deliver an additional 83,000 home care packages. First, he blamed the sector. Then he blamed elderly Australians, and by the end, he seemingly blamed the now Minister for Communications and her legislation. Minister, was the home care package rollout delay a decision of the Minister, a decision of the Health Minister, or was it endorsed by the Cabinet?
Give the call to the... I'm sure the Minister will handle that, but the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. Order has the call.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question. Australians expect us to get aged care right, and through our reforms we're making sure that older people get the safe and the dignified care that they deserve. Now, the decisions of the new Aged Care Act and the support at home that accompanies it were made by this parliament, or rather the last parliament, but here in this place in the last term. They were led by my wonderful predecessor, the now Minister for Communications, but they were supported by the opposition.
Order. On
a bipartisan basis. They were supported by the crossbench. There was once-in-a-generation cooperation across the parliament to ensure once-in-a-generation reforms. The Albanese government's reforms will deliver aged care of the highest quality for older Australians, those who have contributed so much to our nation and who deserve nothing less than the very best care. The heart of this reform is the Support at Home program, which will enable older Australians to live independently in their homes for longer, with access to higher levels of care while staying close to their loved ones and connected to their communities. As the Australian population ages, demand for in-home care has also been growing very rapidly. There are currently more than 300,000 Australians receiving care under the Home Care Packages program, and this is roughly double to the number than just 5 years ago. Mr Speaker, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Right now, we are delivering more care to more people than ever before. When the Support at Home program commences from the 1st of November this year, the Albanese government will release more than 80,000 additional new home care places in the first 12 months of the program. In the meantime, my priority, as I've said before, is ensuring that every older person across our country continues to receive the services they need.
Order.
And that's why we're releasing packages every single week to older Australians waiting for in-home care. At present, we're releasing more than 2,000 packages every week, ensuring the support continues to flow to those who need it most. And as I've said before, we will continue to ensure that those who are assessed through the clinical assessment process as high priority receive their home care packages within a month. Mr Speaker, the short deferral to the commencement of the new Aged Care Act is about ensuring that workers, providers, advocates and, importantly, older people are fully prepared for these generational reforms that will ensure that older Australians get the care they need and that they deserve.
There was far too much noise during that answer. The member for Wannon interjected 8 times. We're just going to ensure that when ministers are heard in questions are asked in silence, ministers are going to be heard in silence. The member for Wannon. If you just sit quietly, you won't be bothered, all right? So we'll just do that. Order. Just give it a rest. All right. The member for Bennelong has the call.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. What progress is the Albanese Labor government making in taking action on climate change, and what are the risks?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thank you to my friend, the member for Bennelong, who of course won an important seat in 2022 of the Liberals, and in 2025 had to win it again on the other side of the pendulum and receive such an overwhelming endorsement, in part because he understands that climate change is real. And he understands that moving on climate change is not just a challenge, but it's an opportunity for Australia. And that is why we've legislated for net zero by 2050 and the safeguard mechanism. That's why we have the capacity investment scheme, growing the renewable energy industry. That's why the vehicle emissions standard is cutting emissions on our roads. And that's why the Cheaper Home Batteries program has installed over 44,895, to be precise, batteries in homes. We're backing renewable energy because it makes sense for our economy. The largest economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution, and we have everything we need to make the most of it right here in Australia. The best sun, wind and hydro in the world, critical minerals, Australian industries, backed by Australian resources. And we're making all this progress despite what we inherited when we came into office. We know that on the former government's watch, 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure. They did absolutely nothing about it. They had 23 failed energy policies over a decade, but didn't implement any of them. Over $600 billion of taxpayers' money was promised to build nuclear power stations to be ready sometime in the 2040s.
Order.
But they want to go back.
Leader of the Nationals.
They want to go back to denial and delay. But Australians don't want to go back. Australians here certainly don't want to go back. Business doesn't want to go back. And their old friend, the former minister here, Matthias Cormann, now the Secretary-General of the OECD, and we congratulate him on his re-election. He doesn't want to go back either. He doesn't want to go back either. But those opposite, of course, are having a review. But today we know that Senator Canavan, the person in charge of reviewing net zero for the Nats, has announced he's introducing a bill in the Senate to abolish it. So he's reviewing it, but he's already going to legislate to abolish it, to mirror the member for New England. Spoiler alert, I reckon the review's going to say it should go. Spoiler alert. That's what we see, the Liberals fighting with the Liberals, the Nats fighting with the Nats, and the Liberals and Nats fighting each other. And meanwhile, what we will do is fight for Australia.
Give a call to the member for Flinders.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. 85-year-old Kevin lives by himself in Mount Martha in my electorate and now needs further assistance to remain at home. Kevin registered to get an assessment for an aged care package in March 2025, but his provider was told by the department that the department couldn't even get an assessment until, quote, early next year. Minister, this is despite Kevin being told he's on the urgent list. Is it really the minister's position that Australians like Kevin were the ones asking him to delay the delivery of 83,000 home care packages?
Give a call to the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for the question and appreciate her interest in this matter. I also thank her for raising the matters relating to Kevin, and as I extended to a colleague yesterday in this House, if she's able to provide me with Kevin's details after question time, I will personally follow up and see where Kevin's matter is at. Kevin's story is such a great example of why our aged care reforms are so very important. Our government is driving landmark reforms to in-home care, ensuring that older Australians get the care they need in the comfort of their own home for as long as possible. Now, in line with Recommendation 28 of the Aged Care Royal Commission, we're delivering a single, streamlined assessment process that will help people just like the question refers to. The new aged care assessment system we're rolling out is designed to be faster, reduce wait times and improve the overall experience for older people and their families.
The National, the member for Moncrief.
Instead of requiring multiple assessments with different providers, the new system will make it simpler for older Australians to access the right level of care when and where they need it, especially as their needs change over time. Now, we recognise, I've said this before, that current wait times for aged care assessments are longer than they should be, and we're working hard to address this in every corner of Australia. Median wait time for an aged care needs assessment from when a referral is issued to when the support plan is completed is currently 25 days, and these wait times are continuing to reduce under our single assessment system.
The Minister's going to pause. It's not going to continue. The Leader of the Nationals had a really good go. One more noise. I mean it. It's far too much noise. We're taking the temperature down. Question's been asked. Member Flinders wants to hear the answer, so do I. No more. The Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As our population ages, the demand for assessments continues to grow. Last year alone, more than 521,000 home support and comprehensive assessments were completed. This is a complex system. The National Priority System and assessment lists are related but different. They can't be conflated. The assessment waitlist contains those seeking lower-level care along with...
The Minister is going to pause so the member for Flinders may take her point of order.
Relevance, Mr Speaker. I'm very grateful for the assistance that's been offered for Kevin, but my question was whether Kevin or anyone like Kevin had asked the Minister to delay the 83,000 packages.
Well, the member knows I can't direct the Minister to answer the question as she would like. He is being directly relevant, talking about the package, talking about the information, talking about exactly what the constituent you've asked about. So we're not just going to get up and say, I don't like the answer. If the Minister was talking about another topic or another alternative policy, he would be absolutely out of line. Everyone knows the rules, so we're just going to follow the rules, not because you don't like the answer. So if there's any more points of order like that, people won't stay for them. And the Minister will be directly relevant, otherwise he will be sat down as well.
The assessment list to which the member's question refers contains those seeking lower-level care along with crossover and duplication of numbers on the National Priority System, with many people waiting for assessment at a higher level while they're already receiving some form of in-home care. Mr Speaker, these stories are exactly why we're reforming this system from the ground up. Big reforms don't happen overnight, but we're working hand-in-hand with assessment organisations, including the states and territories, to ensure a smooth transition, to minimise impacts to older Australians and to get them the care that they deserve.
I'd like to hear from the honourable member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How are homes, businesses and community groups embracing the opportunities of clean energy, and what obstacles stand in the way of that clean energy?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for the question. And as the Prime Minister said, since yesterday's update, another 1,000 Australians have embraced the opportunity to reduce their bills and their emissions by installing a battery under the Albanese government's cheaper home batteries policy. So we're now at 44,895. But not just households, Mr Speaker. We call it the cheaper home batteries policy, but also applies to small businesses, to farms and to community groups. The member for Robertson knows that because he and I visited the Yamina Surf Lifesaving Club, which has a wonderful solar array and an excellent battery which has been installed with the help of the great company Resync, who have used the cheaper home batteries policy to donate more batteries to surf lifesaving clubs to reduce their bills and emissions and reduce their running costs, which is an excellent thing. It's a wonderful surf lifesaving club, Yamina, and it's great to see them reducing their emissions and bills. And not just community groups, as I said, small businesses and farmers. That's why rural uptake has been so good. And the cheaper home battery policy got a very good response this morning when I spoke at the Farming Forever National Summit organised by Farmers for Climate Change. 300 rural people and farmers there advocating. The Minister for Agriculture was there last night. The Assistant Minister has been there, and they were very pleased to hear that update this morning as well. Now, the member asked me about people who aren't embracing the opportunities, and of course they said opposite. We've seen another example this morning of the process that the opposition is undertaking. My shadow minister, the member for Wannon, was on ABC Radio this morning. He was asked to give an update on the net zero review, and he said, "Look, we've always said it will take 9 to 12 months. We want to do it methodically. We want to make sure we get it right. There's no more important area for us to make sure we get it right. Now, it warms your heart to see such process, Mr Speaker, such diligence, such calm, methodical management. He said the review would take 12 months, that it would take a year. It didn't take an hour because 60 minutes later, Senator Canavan took to social media to announce, I'll be introducing a bill to repeal net zero in the Senate. So now we have two bills from the opposition, not one but two bills from the opposition to repeal net zero. The government has introduced 24 bills since the election to do things like lock-in penalty rates in law, to reduce HECS by 20% for cheaper medicines. But that's our priorities. Those opposite have the priorities of fighting themselves about who hates net zero the most, Mr Speaker. Whether Senator Canavan gets the limelight, or the member for New England or others, or the member for Canning, who are all in an arms race to show that they are more right-wing than the other one, Mr Speaker, to show that they are more out of touch with modern Australia, to show that they are more willing to ignore the opportunities for rural and regional Australia and for Australia to create jobs and investment and to ensure that our country seizes the economic opportunities, that is, action on climate change, doesn't ignore those opportunities like those did for a decade.
We'll hear from the honourable member for Kooyong.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Minister, Santos Darwin LNG facility has been leaking massive amounts of methane for almost 20 years. 3 federal bodies, NOPSEMA, CSIRO and the Clean Energy Regulator, have known and done nothing. Underreporting like this makes a mockery of the safeguard mechanism and of your claims about decreased emissions. Will you deny Santos any further approvals until it acts to rectify this long-standing act of environmental vandalism?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for her question, and I share her concerns, but I can't share the premise to her question in relation to the safeguard reforms. The safeguard reforms have successfully delivered on-site emissions reduction equivalent to 2/3 of Australian domestic aviation in their first year of operation. That is no small thing, Mr Speaker. These were difficult reforms that were supported through the parliament, but they are working to reduce emissions in our 215 biggest emitters. Now, that should not be, with respect, discounted by the honourable member or anyone else. That sort of emissions reduction achieved by this government and is reflected in the last quarter's figures, which showed industrial emissions and stationary emissions coming down, is a good thing. That's what we think on this side of the House. It's a good thing. Not everyone agrees. Now, in relation to the particular incident, I am concerned to read about that. I have asked my department to ensure that the expert review of methane emission management, which I commissioned, the government commission, led by the former Chief Scientist Dr Cathy Foley, examines the matters raised, ensures that it's considered in their deliberations, and I will update the honourable member and the House when I've received the report from the former Chief Scientist.
Give a call to the honourable member for Bass.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government continuing to make medicines cheaper for Australians?
Call to the Minister for Health, the Minister for Ageing and the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Bass. The Prime Minister and I launched our $9 billion investment in Medicare with the member for Bass in the great city of Launceston. And from that day, she has been just the most terrific advocate for a stronger Medicare, Mr Speaker. And she also understands the power of cheaper medicines. I read her speech in the contribution to the Cheaper Medicines Bill that just passed the parliament, Mr Speaker. She told a really powerful story about a couple of pharmacists that the member for Bass had spoken to, one in Kings Meadows and another in Ravenswood, both in the heart of her electorate. And they told her stories of parents standing at the pharmacy counter and weighing up which prescription they could afford to take home and which one they'd have to leave behind. And she said no parent in Australia should ever have to make that choice, and with this bill, fewer families will, Mr Speaker, and she is absolutely right. When we came to government, Mr Speaker, the ABS told us there are around 1 million Australians every year going without filling a script their doctor had said was important for their health because of cost. And most members, in their contribution to the debate, told similar stories to the member for Bass. And that is the power of cheaper medicines, Mr Speaker. It's good for the hip pocket, a really important cost of living measure, but it's also good for health. good for the health of Australians, good for the health of their kids, Mr Speaker. And last night, the Senate passed legislation to deliver the 5th wave of cheaper medicines reforms under this government, Mr Speaker. And from January 1st, the maximum co-payment on a PBS script Australians will pay is $25. As the Prime Minister points out, the same price it was all the way back in 2004, Mr Speaker. Indeed, without the two big cuts this government has made to the PBS co-payment, that figure would have hit more than $50 next year. Instead, it will be less than half of that. And just this change, passed last night by the Parliament, will deliver $200 million in savings every single year to general patients. And that's on top of the $1.5 billion Australians have already saved at the pharmacy counter through the first 4 waves of our cheaper medicines reforms. Mr Speaker, this is another important step in this government delivering on the solemn promises and commitments we made to the Australian people at the last election. More urgent care clinics are already rolling out. Investment for more bulk billing is going to start on the 1st of November. Mr Speaker, and last night we delivered even cheaper medicines for Australian patients.
Give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. In March 2021, the now Prime Minister said, quote, "We cannot be satisfied with a situation where older Australians are dying while waiting for their home care packages," end quote. The Minister was sworn in on May the 13th this year. Since that date, how many elderly Australians have died waiting for a home care package?
The Minister for Social Services is warned. I don't want anyone interjecting while people are asking questions. I think that's crystal clear. The Minister for Aged Care and Seniors has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question. It is always saddening to hear of older Australians, whether they are in care or awaiting care, passing away, and I extend my deepest condolences to any family who faces that affliction. The decision to briefly defer the Aged Care Act was a difficult one that I made in consultation along with my colleagues, and the Minister Butler and I announced that brief deferral, and we did it after an extensive consultation. When I first became the Minister, I spent many days, weeks, speaking to older people across our country, speaking to the workers who care for them, speaking to the providers who provide the care to them. And the overwhelming feedback that was provided was that there needed to be a brief deferral to ensure the continuity and quality of care for older Australians. Now, some months have passed since then, but it would perhaps be helpful if I were to refresh the Parliament's memory about how that were received.
The Minister will pause so the Leader of the Opposition can raise her point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The point of order is on relevance. It was a very tight question. The Minister should know the answer to this question. Since the Minister was sworn in, how many elderly Australians have died waiting for a home care package?
The Minister was asked for a fact, but he was also asked about comments made by the Prime Minister a number of years ago. There was elements to the question, but he's going to have to remain very relevant to this question, as there was not a lot of other detail provided, but he'll have another 1 minute 50 to provide the answer to the Leader of the Opposition.
I think I want to provide one of these most important quotes from the period where the decision was made. "The decision to delay the start date for the new aged care reforms is the right decision for older Australians, aged care providers and home care operators." This is a quote that I think concisely and clearly summarises that decision and its impact on older people and the sector across Australia. And it's a quote from the media release that was published by the Shadow Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Ruston.
Order. Give a call to the Honourable Member for Chisholm.
Thank you so much, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government strengthening Medicare for all Australians?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for her question. And last night, our plan to make medicines cheaper passed the parliament, cutting the cost of a PBS script from $30 down to just $25. And that follows up from what we did in our first term to cut it from $42 down to $30. Had we not done that, if we'd have continued the policy that was in place by the former government, those costs today would have been more than $50. So, in fact, we have cut the cost of medicines by half for people who need them, many of whom, of course, will need multiple scripts. But on top of that, of course, we have 60-day dispensing, something that those opposite said would lead to massive closures of pharmacies. We wouldn't be able to find them anywhere around Australia. What nonsense. Another example of their specialty of scare campaigns. Specialty of scare campaigns rather than engaging in good policy. But, of course, we've also frozen the cost at just $7.70 until the end of the decade for concession card holders, making an enormous difference. At the last election, we promised to do all this, and now we have delivered on this promise, something that makes an enormous difference to communities that we represent, easing cost-of-living pressures right across the country. But it also says something about the way that we do policy, Mr Speaker, because we consulted with the Pharmacy Guild, we consulted with senior Australians in particular, we consulted with people in the health sector about what was needed. A nation committed to Medicare, committed to the Australian idea that when you get sick, you get the care that you need, not because of your bank balance, but because you have this little piece of green and gold plastic, Mr Speaker. This little piece of green and gold plastic. Your Medicare card. Your Medicare card. I thought that might provoke a reaction, Mr Speaker. But I did the right thing. I kept the shirt. In the office, Mr Speaker. Our government is committed to strengthening Medicare for all Australians. Strengthening it by making medicines cheaper and making it cheaper again. Strengthening it through the urgent care clinics, another 50 of which we're going to open, and our $8.5 billion investment in bulk billing. Strengthening it through 1-800-Medicare, 24/7 bulk billed telehealth service. Our government is committed to Medicare, strengthening it for all Australians now and into the future.
The call to the member for Mallee.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister explain to the House why he was chased out of Ballarat last Friday by a convoy of tractors?
Order. The member for Bendigo. Order. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Possibly because the member for Hume wasn't there. Because the member for Hume had this to say.
Order.
On the 7th of April 2022.
Order. Members
we
on my
are
left.
investing in VNI West because it is expected to generate $1.9 billion in net market benefits and will be a key part of an efficient transmission backbone for the electricity market. The protesters there in Ballarat on Friday were protesting against a program that was initiated and given regulatory approval by the former government, something that I pointed out at the time. The member for Hume went on to say this: our investment in this project will support reliable electricity supply, deliver substantial cost savings and help keep the lights on for Australian families, business and industries. Well done, Angus. Well done, Angus.
Order. The Prime Minister will refer to members by their correct title. Has the Prime Minister completed his answer? All right. The member for Wannon on a point of order.
Yeah, it's relevant, Speaker. The question was, why was the Prime Minister chased out of Ballarat by tractors? The Prime Minister was chased.
Well, the member for Wannon, when you ask a question which is very broad and you ask for a reason why, order, the Prime Minister is giving an answer to a very political, broad question. Order. Just everyone, take the temperature down. Otherwise there'll be actions taken. Prime Minister will continue.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. As I said, this was a protest against a project in which the member for Hume also said the development of interconnectors and transmission is critical to bringing new generation capacity into the energy system. Thousands of kilometres of new transmission is likely to be needed to connect new generation. That is what the member for Hume said when he was the minister responsible. Now, what I did in Ballarat was front up, be honest, tell people—
the Prime Minister is going to pause. The member for Wannon, you've been here long enough. Those sorts of— don't point to other people. You're going to leave the chamber. No, you're going to leave the chamber under 94A. No. Order. If the member does not leave immediately, I will name him. Well, this goes to the question I have. If I can't hear what's being said because there is continual interjection, it's very difficult for me to get people to withdraw things. I'm sure the manager wishes to help.
I am indeed trying to help. Well, we didn't ask what the top speed of a tractor was, but we could have done that. The way I'm helping is the Prime Minister did use an unparliamentary term, and he does know that, and he should withdraw it, and I'm sure he would be willing to assist the House.
Well, I didn't hear what the Prime Minister is. Look. Order. Look, we're just going to deal with— I'll deal with this very precisely. You can resume your seat. The Prime Minister has said something unparliamentary. I'll get him to withdraw. If I don't hear it, it's very difficult for me to make these calls. But just to assist the House, if anything's happened, if not, he's just going to continue on. Prime Minister has the floor.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. On Friday, I withdraw the same thing as the member for Hume said.
Order.
Good point.
Order.
Good point. I'll tell you what leadership isn't, Mr Speaker. At a time when—
Order. Members on the member for Hume, just—
I'll make 2 points. At a time when security is an issue, making those sort of comments, I ask them to reflect on seriously, given what's occurred with the Victorian Premier today and other incidents. That's the first point, Mr Speaker. And the Australian Federal Police have enough of a job without it being added to. That's the first point. And the second point is I front up and talk with people one-on-one as well as at an event. I don't lie to them. Mr Speaker. And the truth is—
Order.
The truth is that coal-fired power stations, 24 out of 28 of them closed on their watch, and they pretend something different as an example of just political opportunism.
Okay. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for Whitlam.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories. How is the Albanese Labor government improving the lives and health of people living in regional and rural Australia?
We call to the Minister for Emergency Management, the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Whitlam for her question. The work that she does supporting people in her community for their health and well-being. Her electorate is home now to one of 90 Medicare urgent care clinics across the country, and the Dapto Urgent Care Clinic has now had over 16,000 fully bulk billed presentations. Mr Speaker, the Albanese Labor government is building Australia's future by investing in our regions, and we understand that regional development isn't just about investing in roads and bridges, although they are incredibly important. It's also about cheaper medicine, which, thanks to the Labor government, will come down to $25 on the 1st of January 2026. The last time they were this cheap, Mr Speaker, was in 2004. In 2004, I was still at university and working in pharmacy. The #1 song on the Billboard charts was Usher's song Yeah, and we'll take that as an agreement of this policy. And the word of the year was blog. This year's word of the year is delulu, and those opposite are still delulu, because this is a huge deal for people in regional Australia because it will help improve lives. We've frozen the cost of concession cardholder medicine at $7.70 for the rest of the decade, and this is all about strengthening Medicare, Mr Speaker. As I said, we've established 90 Medicare urgent care clinics across the country, 31 in regional Australia, in Queanbeyan, in Warrnambool, in Broome, Cairns, Coffs Harbour, Devonport and, of course, in Dapto. In addition to that, we're prioritising mental health in our regions, opening more Medicare mental health centres. We're improving bulk billing rates across regional Australia, and we're investing in infrastructure for our regional communities. Whether it's a swimming pool or a skate park, we are committed to delivering better sports and health facilities for regional Australia. In the last couple of weeks, we've delivered a range of projects, including the Kawana Aquatic Centre on the Sunshine Coast and a new skate and play precinct in Port Fairy. We've committed $1 million and reopened the Bermagui Indoor Sports Centre, thanks to an investment from the Bushfire Local Economic Recovery Fund. And finally, the Merimbula Skate Park is set to open soon, helping local kids keep active. The Albanese Labor government has also announced $14 million for the Hunter Park Youth and Recreational Precinct in Gilgandra, a major investment through our regional precincts and partnerships program in sporting facilities that keep kids active and healthy. And I know that Gilgandra Mayor Doug Batten was ecstatic at the funding announcement because he said, "We're very grateful. This project will change lives in Gilgandra." On this side of the House, we are investing in better health care and facilities in our regions because we know it changed lives. Only the Albanese Labor government is standing up for regional Australia, delivering better health care, strengthening Medicare and helping our communities stay active.
Before I call the member for Moncrieff, I'll just do a couple of acknowledgements and she'll get the call. Pleased to inform the House that in the gallery today is a delegation of members of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea, led by Ms Ji-hee Park. Welcome to Parliament. And also in the gallery today are members of the Let Them Be Kids campaign, which aims to raise awareness of the potentially harmful impacts of social media on children, as guests of the Prime Minister, and also see the Mayor of South Gippsland Shire, Councillor John Skelling, here as a guest of the member for Monash. I give the call to the honourable member for Moncrieff.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. How many older Australians have died waiting for a home care package since 13 May this year?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for her question. As I said, it is always saddening to hear of any older Australian who dies, whether in care or waiting for care. And it's the best reason as to why our current reforms are so very important. This is about ensuring that older people all across our community can get the care that they need, whether it be in home care, as will be delivered through our Support at Home program, or through residential care under our Improved Quality and Standards framework. And I remind the Parliament again that this decision was made on the basis of very comprehensive advice that came from the sector, from older people, from those that care for them. And perhaps, again, it would be helpful if I reminded the Parliament of some of the reflections that were made at the time that this decision was made. This is from Silverchain, one of the very large home care providers, from their media release. As the third largest home care package provider in Australia, Silverchain welcomes the federal government's decision to delay the implementation of the new Aged Care Act and the Support at Home program until the 1st of November 2025. The Chief Executive went on to say, "This is an incredibly ambitious program of reform and courageous leadership is needed to deliver care differently." We welcome today's...
Pause. The member for Moncrieff on a point of order.
The point of order is on relevance, Mr Speaker. The minister is not answering the question. It was very, very tight about how many Australians have died since the 13th of May. Tight question. Can we have an answer?
I can appreciate the member would like a figure, a yes or no, or these types of questions, but the ministers won't be able to stray too much further because he was asked a very specific question. So if he's providing information regarding the policy, but he won't be able to go on for too much longer because he was asked a very direct question.
As I was saying, Mr Speaker, the Silverchain Chief Executive went on to say this is an incredibly ambitious program of reform and courageous leadership is needed to deliver care differently. We welcome today's announcement and thank the government for listening to and engaging with the sector. The Ageing Australia CEO, Ageing Australia being the peak body representing the sector, said, "We applaud the government for listening to the concerns of the aged care sector and putting..."
The minister needs to confirm his remarks to what he was asked about. He can't read too much more into the... But he needs to just make it directly relevant to what he was asked about.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And putting the needs of older Australians first.
Order.
Sadly,
Order.
we have lost a number of older Australians
Order.
who've either been in care or waiting for care. In the last financial year, that number was 4,812, as was provided by the department to the Senate in the hearings last week.
Give the call to the member for Dunkley.
My question is to the Deputy Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on recruitment and retention in the Australian Defence Force, and what difficulties has this faced in the past?
Call to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Defence.
Well, thank the member for her question. Mr Speaker, the simple facts are that at the beginning of 2022, the Australian Defence Force was in numerical decline. Under the coalition, the annual separation rate at the ADF had grown to a whopping 11.2%. And at the same time, recruitment was in the doldrums, and what that meant was that in the last 2 years of their government, the Defence Force shrunk by 1,400 personnel. And yet at the same time, their government provided a fanciful and grandiose announcement of increasing the defence workforce by more than 18,000 personnel, an announcement which came with a massive price tag and, unsurprisingly and correspondingly, a massive allocated funding deficit, because the most arid, deserted, friendless place for defence spending was the Liberal Party Expenditure Review Committee. The truth is that under those opposite, their record in government on defence spending was an absolute disgrace. Now, in the last 3 years and more, under our government, we have dramatically turned that situation around, and I would like to pay credit to the Minister for Defence Personnel. From our very first budget, we increased the defence offering, focusing on housing, and then focusing on family benefits, and then improving wages in areas of skill force shortage, and then improving and increasing retention bonuses. And all of that has meant that today the separation rate for the ADF has fallen to 7.7%, below the long-term average. At the same time, we are now finding young Australians where they are.
The Minister will pause. The member for Fisher, I don't know what's going on, but you're going to cease interjecting for the remainder of this answer and every other answer during question time. You're on a warning. We're just going to listen to the Minister.
We're finding young Australians where they are, advertising on gaming apps and social media. in the last 12 months there have been 75,000 applications to join the ADF, the largest number in years. And while there's still more work to do, we are now processing those applications faster, and that has meant that in the last financial year, more than 7,000 Australians have enlisted in the full-time force, the largest number in 15 years. Today, the full-time force stands at 61,494, and that represents an increase of 2,100 in the last 12 months. And what it shows is that when you value people's service, when you meet young Australians on their own terms, when you improve your processes, actually young Australians are willing to serve our nation by wearing Australia's uniform, and given the world today, that is fundamentally important to our national interest.
The call to the honourable member for McKellar.
My question is for the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development. Currently, e-bikes do not have to meet minimum quality or safety standards on import. The result has been a proliferation of e-bikes that can be easily modified to go at speeds well over 50 kilometres an hour without a single push of the pedal. Yesterday, I introduced a bill to ensure e-bikes imported into Australia meet international best practice standards, and multiple state transport ministers have also written to you seeking federal leadership on this issue. Minister, will you act to ensure imported e-bikes are safe before there are further tragedies, including in my electorate of McKellar?
Give a call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government.
Thanks very much, and can I thank the member for McKellar for the question and her advocacy for the safer use of what's called personal mobility devices in our communities. The member is right that e-scooters and e-bikes both bring a range of benefits to our communities through encouraging more active transport and reducing our reliance on cars. And we've particularly seen an increase of families in inner cities and suburbs using these devices to help kids get to school. However, these devices do also bring risks, and I know we have seen recently a number of tragic incidents involving e-bikes and e-scooters. They are the subject of inquiries in both Queensland — I acknowledge the Queensland members of parliament who are here — and in WA at the moment, because it has largely been states and territories' regulatory systems that have seen these allowed in a range of settings across our local communities. As I understand the member's private member's bill, it focuses on listing specific types of personal mobility devices as road vehicles under a system that has largely been designed for cars and trucks on roads. It is clear that a broader and coordinated national system is needed for both the safer use and regulation of these devices. It is why, at the meeting of state and territory transport ministers last month, I placed this issue on the agenda. At the meeting, state and territory ministers agreed to develop an integrated regulatory framework for these devices to improve rider and pedestrian safety. That work is being led by the Western Australian Government with support from the National Transport Commission. It will consider issues including compliance, regulation, rules for use and the development and ongoing monitoring of standards. This work will report back to Infrastructure and Transport ministers later this year. Additionally, there have also been concerns raised around fires caused by poor quality lithium-ion batteries, and work is currently already underway through the Consumer Ministers Network on a national approach to the safe use of lithium-ion batteries on these devices under Australian consumer law.
Call to the honourable member for Moncrieff.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Communications. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to protect young Australians from harmful and abusive technology?
Thank the member for Hughes, and I give the call to the honourable the Minister for Communications and Sport.
I thank the member for Hughes for the question. The best member for Hughes in 30 years. Mr Speaker, the Albanese government is taking world-leading action to reduce online harms experienced by young Australians, including passing historic legislation to delay access to social media until the age of 16. Today, I announced the next step in that mission to restrict access to notification and undetectable online stalking tools. There is a place for AI and legitimate tracking technology in Australia. But the problem facing Australians is that technology has no moral compass. Its capacity for good or for bad depends on who is using it. The rockets that launched the Apollo missions to the moon were the same rockets designed to deliver a nuclear weapon. And while AI has the power to move Australia forward, there is no place in our country for apps and technologies that are used solely to abuse, humiliate and harm people, especially our children. Mr Speaker, one child in every classroom in Australia has been the victim of deepfake abuse. 4 out of 5 of reported cases involve young girls. In one Melbourne case, investigators found 50 female students at a single high school were the victims of sexually explicit deepfakes. And the scale of harm is escalating, with reports to eSafety from people under the age of 18 doubling in the past 18 months. Today I heard from a mum, Emma, whose daughter Tilly had a fake naked photo shared by school kids on the bus. And between 3:10 and 6 p.m, Emma's mum estimates that almost 3,000 kids had seen this fake naked photo, and that night Tilly attempted to take her own life. These harms are too great and too urgent for us not to act. While there are federal and state laws against the publishing and distributing of sexualised, non-consensual deepfakes and AI-generated child sexual abuse material, slimy predators are slipping through the cracks. And the current landscape relies too heavily on victims reporting these issues once the harm has occurred. We have to move the burden of reporting from the shoulders of victims and stop the harm at the source. We have to hold big tech accountable for the technology they are delivering. These apps are only designed to abuse, to bully, to humiliate and harass, and we are determined to restrict them. Because while the image might be fake, the abuse is real.
The Prime Minister.
If I can indulge us, Mr Speaker, just acknowledge some of the parents who I met with today who are in the gallery. Parents who've taken, amid their grief and loss, have found the strength to work towards helping other Australians, particularly young people coming through. To Wayne Holsworth, thank you for sharing your story about your son Mac. To Emma Mason, thank you for sharing your story about your daughter Tilly. To Fiona Carusi and Jane Rowan for talking with me about your daughters and the journey you are on together with them. Your courage and your candour is a powerful reminder of why it's so important, not just the government but the whole Parliament Act, to keep Australians safe online. And your courage in speaking about such personal stories really is changing future lives for the better. And I thank you and acknowledge you.
I give the call to the Honourable Member for Herbert.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. This morning, Dr Brendan Radford, Director of Policy and Research for National Seniors Australia, told ABC Radio, I quote, "There were people who have died. We've had another person who was waiting for a package, ended up in hospital, got released, had no support. 3 days later, they died. When will the Minister apologise to the families of the vulnerable elderly people who have died waiting for you to do your job?"
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for their question. As I've said before, stories that are shared within this parliament and outside of it of older people passing away, whether they are in care or waiting for care, are always saddening, and that's why our aged care reforms are so very important. The decision to defer the implementation of the new Act and the Support at Home program that came with it was very broadly welcomed. I've canvassed these matters very extensively in the parliament over the last couple of days, and I refer the member to my previous answers.
Call order. Give the call to the honourable member for Solomon.
Yeah, thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. What progress has been made on the economy ahead of the release of tomorrow's national accounts?
Give the call to the Treasurer.
Thanks, Speaker. I know the member for Solomon won't mind, and I hope you won't mind in also shouting out my colleagues from the Queensland Parliament who are up there, particularly my local member Mick de Brenny and my great mate Linus Power. And the reason I raised the Logan members up there, Mr Speaker, is because our community is getting a hard time on my kitchen rules right now, as I understand it. And on behalf of the member for Logan, the member for Springwood, the member for Ford down here, we say to Lauren and Lily, we are right behind you, we love our community and we believe in you, and you'll do a great job on our behalf. Now, Mr Speaker, tomorrow we get the national accounts for the June quarter. And that quarter was defined by extreme volatility on markets because of announcements about tariffs out of DC. Economists expect that overall economic growth picked up a little bit in the June quarter, but not a lot, Mr Speaker. The private sector is expected to be the primary driver of growth because public demand was flat. We know that already. We'll see what the rest of the numbers say tomorrow, but we already know since this government was elected, Mr Speaker, inflation is down. We've delivered 2 surpluses. We've got the strongest real wages growth in 5 years. We've got recovering living standards. Interest rates have been cut 3 times in 6 months. And we've got the lowest average unemployment of any government in the last half a century. Now, we are one of only half a dozen economies, advanced economies, which have grown every quarter for the last 3 years. 32 economies have gone backwards at least one quarter in the last 3 years, but we aren't one of them. Now, Mr Speaker, growth is not as strong as we would like, but continuous economic growth in the circumstances we see around the world over the past 3 years is welcome. Our progress gives us a decent foundation to deal with the uncertainty which still surrounds us and the challenges which still confront us. Now, we're working hard as a government to give people help with the cost of living, making medicines cheaper, cutting student debt, boosting wages and cutting taxes. But we know that there is more to do because people are still under pressure. We know that we have to make our economy more productive and resilient and our budget more sustainable. And that's what the Economic Reform Roundtable was all about. And already, in the last couple of weeks, we have taken action on some of the consensus which was reached there, speeding up housing approvals, accelerating EPBC reform and abolishing nuisance tariffs, Mr Speaker. Now, if you look at our economy and you see the national accounts tomorrow, it is looking more and more like the soft landing that we have been planning for and preparing for in our economy. But we know that there's more to do to ensure that we turn our recent progress in the economy into higher living standards for our people into the future. That's this government's focus, even if it's not the focus of those opposite.
Call to the honourable member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. A year ago, I asked about the $6.55 billion gap in health spending between metropolitan and regional Australians. The response was that the gap was being addressed. Now the National Rural Health Alliance reports that the gap has increased to $8.35 billion, over $1,090 less in annual spending on the health of each regional Australian. Minister, it's getting worse. A year later, what urgent steps will you take to fix this inequality?
You call to the Minister for Health and Aged Care, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member, fellow South Australian, for that question and her ongoing interest in health equity, particularly considered in geographical terms. As I've said to the member a number of times, we're doing all that we can to ensure that Australians living further away from our GPOs are getting good, equitable access to affordable care, particularly primary care. So if you look at the results of our first investment in bulk billing, I haven't checked for a little while, but the member knows, I think, that the biggest increase in bulk billing rates of any electorate in this entire parliament have been in the member for Mayo's electorate, or maybe the member for Clark's electorate. You're 1 and 2. I can't remember who is number 1, who is number 2, and that is because the bulk billing incentives paid to GPs outside of the major cities are higher than the changes we've made to doctors who are working in our major metropolitan areas. And that goes the same for the bulk billing investments that will take place on the 1st of November. The increases for a GP bulk billing in rural and regional Australia are very significant outside the major cities. They're significant in our cities, but they're more significant outside our major cities. We're also doing all that we can to encourage doctors, nurse practitioners and other health professionals to move outside of the cities and practice there. We've had a range of incentives in place to encourage doctors to do that and nurse practitioners. The Minister for Education passed legislation that is now in force that means that recent medical and nurse practitioner graduates who go and work in the country get substantial student debt relief related directly to the level of remoteness in the area that they're working in. Look, we know that there is more to do. The National Rural Health Alliance is a terrific organisation I know members right across the parliament meet with very regularly. The tyranny of distance has been one that has bedevilled our healthcare system for the entire history of our nation. Technology does help that. That's providing some relief to Australians living outside our major cities, but we're also doing all that we can to support particularly general practice, make sure that they can really run a thriving, viable business. Just to give you a sense of what the impact of our bulk billing incentives will be for a GP. A full-time GP bulk billing every single patient that comes through their door in the major cities from the 1st of November will earn about $400,000 a year if they're working in our major cities. In an average rural community, that rises to about $457,000 a year, a substantial increase. And that uses the earnings calculator that is used by the College of GPs and the supervisors. I see some GPs frowning behind you, Member for Mayo. That is using the earnings calculator used by the sector itself.
Give the call to the honourable member for Reid.
My question is to the Minister for Small Business. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to ensure small businesses prosper?
Give the call to the Minister for International Development, the Minister for Small Business and the Minister for Multicultural Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And I do want to thank the member for Reid for her question. I know the member for Reid is a very strong advocate for small businesses in her local community. And when I speak to the member for Reid, she often mentions to me the delicious noodles at My Aunt's Homemade Noodles, a small business in Burwood. And I'm looking forward to also visiting My Aunt's Homemade Noodles with the member for Reid when I'm next in her electorate. Mr Speaker, the Albanese Labor government has the back of small businesses because small businesses are the backbone of communities right across Australia. And I'm pleased to say that there are over 800,000 new small businesses since the Albanese government came into office in 2022. And that number keeps growing week by week. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, Mr Speaker, because small businesses contribute around $600 billion to our economy each year, and they support more than 5 million jobs. To ensure small businesses grow and prosper, we've delivered over $2 billion in practical and targeted supports, focusing on 3 key priority areas that are outlined in our Australia's very first National Small Business Strategy. Those 3 key priority areas are easing the pressure, supporting growth and levelling the playing field. In easing the pressure, we've extended the energy bill relief, we've paused indexation on the draft beer exercise, supporting the hospitality industry and also those who drink beer, extending the $20,000 instant asset write-off so that businesses can buy the things that they need to grow and to thrive. And we've got $25.8 million in mental health and financial wellbeing supports for small business, something that's proven to be very successful in helping small businesses to sustain. In supporting small businesses to grow under that priority area, we are helping to build a skilled workforce through our free TAFE and through reducing HECS debt, providing small businesses with access to the skills and trained workforce that they need. We've provided over $60 million for digital support through the Cyber Wardens programs, Digital Solutions, the Small Business Cyber Resilience Service and cyber health checks, and reducing red tape and boosting competition. We're levelling the playing field by strengthening the ACCC enforcement of the Franchising Code and tackling unfair contract terms to protect small businesses. And we're taking action against illegal phoenixing conduct, especially in the construction industry. Mr Speaker, Small business, as I mentioned, is one of the key backbones of our communities, and represented right across Australia here, we'll continue to back them because they back Australians.
Time has concluded. Give the call to the member for Cook.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. The National Ageing Research Institute's submission to the inquiry into aged care and service delivery said, and I quote, "People waiting for longer than 6 months for a home care package had an 18% higher chance of death than those who wait 30 days or less." Can the Minister confirm that this is true?
Give a call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for their question, and I've canvassed these matters extensively over the last couple of days. I refer you to my previous answers.
Order when the House comes to order. Give the call to the honourable member for Leichhardt.
My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering for first home buyers, and are there any risks to delivery?
Call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
A wonderful question from the member for Leichhardt, Speaker, and he is such a tireless advocate for housing in his community. Speaker, we're doing some really amazing things in his local area on housing. We're building more homes. There's 11,000 renters in his community who've got that 50% increase to Commonwealth rent assistance. And, Speaker, I know that the local member will be particularly proud because our government has already helped 1,106 of his constituents buy their first home through our 5% deposit program. Now, Speaker, for 4 decades, our country has not been building enough homes, and this failure has left us with a housing crisis that's been cooking for a generation. We know that the solution here is pretty straightforward. We've got to build, 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 and that's why the bulk of our ambitious $43 billion housing agenda is focused on boosting supply. Now, Speaker, this agenda is, of course, already delivering for the country. We've had about 500,000 homes that have been built around our nation since we came to office. Speaker, on the last stats that came out from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, we saw that housing starts are up 17% on where they were a year ago. We've seen construction costs stabilise from their historic increase that was occurring when those opposite left office, and we've got now 25,000 social and affordable homes in planning or construction, with more than 5,000 completed. Now, Speaker, these are really important moves to help us tackle the housing crisis from every angle, but our government also fiercely believes that the young people of this country need help with housing, and they need help right now. Now, Speaker, that is why our government is making it easier for Australians to buy through our expanded 5% deposit program. Speaker, no income caps, no caps on places, and increased property price caps that better reflect where we know that Australians want to live. Now, Speaker, as you've heard me say before, our government is all about delivery, delivery, delivery. And that is why we are bringing forward this announcement, because we want to get that help to Australians earlier than we were originally planning. Speaker, we're bringing this forward to the 1st of October. Mark that date in your diary for any people who are in the gallery and want to get that amazing Australian dream of home ownership realised. Now, Speaker, 180,000 people have already benefited from this scheme right around the country, and I want to say my hello to Matt and Maddie, who are in the member for Leichhardt's electorate. I sat down with them just after they'd bought their first home with our 5% deposit program, and they told me an amazing story. This beautiful couple, Speaker, they had a young child and another baby on the way, and would you believe that these Australians were not able to get housing stability, bouncing from family member to family member? Well, that's when our government was able to step in, help them get into a home of their own, and that family now owns a home in the member for Leichhardt's electorate. Speaker, we want to see more Australians get that opportunity, and we're really pleased to be rolling out this program on 1 October. Thanks so much.
Give the call to the honourable member for Wentworth.
My question is for the Prime Minister. Today, former Defence Force Chief Admiral Chris Barry reiterated the Boe Declaration's warning that climate change is the single greatest threat to security for Australia and for our immediate region, including our Pacific neighbours. You are attending the Pacific Island Forum next week. What assurances will you be providing to your Pacific counterparts that Australia's climate ambition will meet the threat level to the region and will be consistent with keeping temperature increases to 1.5 degrees?
Give a call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Wentworth for her question and, more importantly, thank her for her commitment to acting on climate change and to participating in this parliament as the representative for Wentworth on behalf of her constituents. For the people of Wentworth or the people for Grainler, or that matter, this can make an enormous difference, acting. But for people in the Pacific, as she correctly identifies, for people of Tuvalu, of Kiribati, this is an existential threat to the very existence of their nations. And when I attend the Pacific Island Forum hosted by the Solomon Islands next week, I will be attending as a participant, not as a block, to climate action. And that is one of the big distinctions that has occurred. The entry fee for credibility in our region, in the Pacific, in ASEAN, is action on climate change. And we indeed will be pursuing our hosting of the Conference of the Parties to be held, we hope, in Australia in partnership with our Pacific Island neighbours and family as well. And I welcome the support for that from at least one person in the Liberal Party, Senator Hume, overnight as well. It's important that we engage constructively. We will do so. We have funding for climate change infrastructure, resilience and preparation as well as with agreements such as the Fallapili Agreement with Tuvalu. We have a specific program recognising that sea levels are rising, they are having an impact, and allowing a number of Tuvalu citizens to be able to come to Australia each year. That has been welcomed. In the lead-up to the Pacific Island Forum, I've had discussions with a range of our neighbours, including Vanuatu, that I will visit on the way to the Solomon Islands next week, about our joint commitments which are there. The member, quite rightly, quotes Admiral Barry and the fact that this is a national security issue, and it is, because these issues do raise our relationships with our neighbours. They also raise the issue of security and the very survival of those island states. And they raise also how we participate and how we're seen by our neighbours. And that is important. I've said that our defence relationships are also about divesting in our relationships, not just our capability, and this is just one way in which we do so.
Give a call to the honourable member for Tangney.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health and Ageing. After decades of cuts and neglect, why it is so important to strengthen Medicare and to invest in aged care?
A call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the NDIS.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for his question, because he knows that nothing has been more important for this government than strengthening Medicare and aged care over the last 3 years, partly because health and social care is in Labor's DNA, but partly as well because of the mess that we inherited from those opposites after a decade of cuts and neglect. As I've said before, when we came to government, Mr Speaker, we inherited bulk billing in free fall. And last term I outlined the impact that horror health budget in 2014 had on bulk billing, and the role in particular of the Health Minister at the time, the former member for Dixon. But now, as we go about the serious work of strengthening Medicare, from time to time on this side, we do a Medicare pop quiz. And the latest question doing the round is which health minister never once increased the Medicare rebate? And on this side, most people answer Peter Dutton. But in his defence, even Mr Dutton increased the Medicare rebate once. They were close, Mr Speaker. I'll talk about aged care packages, don't worry. Even Mr Dutton increased the Medicare rebate once, Mr Speaker. I can only find one health minister who never once increased the Medicare rebate. It's the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker. Indeed, I blame Mr Dutton for the 6-year Medicare rebate freeze. But when I go back to the 2016 budget, when the Leader of the Opposition was the Health Minister, I find not only did she double down on Mr Dutton's 4-year freeze, she extended it another 2 years, Mr Speaker, another 2 years. And on the serious question of aged care, which the Leader of the Opposition interjected about, I thought I'd compare the pair, Mr Speaker. Well, we added additional packages in the 23 budget, the 24 budget, the 24 MyEFO, the 25 budget. The Leader of the Opposition, how many additional packages do you think she added in her time with responsibility for aged care? A big donut, Mr Speaker. A big donut, Mr Speaker. And I think the residential aged care sector would have been very happy just to be ignored by the Leader of the Opposition like the home care sector was, but she actually cut their funds, Mr Speaker, by $500 million in MyEFO, by $1.2 billion in the 2016 budget, cuts that helped push the aged care sector into the crisis that led the Royal Commission to use one word: neglect. Neglect, Mr Speaker. Now, we take our job of strengthening Medicare and aged care very seriously on this side, but I tell you what, we're not going to take advice from those opposite, led by the Leader of the Opposition, given her record.
Call to the Prime Minister.
Speaker, on that note, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.